thinking that its life is over and it needs to produce seed in order to perpetuate itself. But the other thing about picking with those leafy crops is that actually you also need to do it to maintain the health of the plants, because you need to create some space around them and stop them becoming too congested, because otherwise plants like that will often get affected by mildew. Trapped moisture will have a very negative effect on them. But yeah, I don't know why it's so difficult to pick.
Because I think you're just so overwhelmed with the miracle of having grown it in the first place.
Maybe, and you want to just keep going back and looking at it rather than making it look scruffy by cutting it down and eating it. But yes, it's really important to remember why you're doing it, and to keep in mind that you will actually be, by picking, you'll be producing more. It's, and obviously there are some things like when you cut a cabbage down, if you've actually managed to grow one, then that is a one-shot deal. But most things will reward you by producing more if you keep on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the job that I did when I was working in the veg garden, without fail, every single day, and it would take me sometimes hours, was to deadhead. Things like even the calendulas, and certainly sweet peas. You can't afford to be missing any that have gone to seed, otherwise it's going to wreck the plant. So in order to keep it going throughout the year, it was more of an issue for when I was working in the veg garden to also make it look lovely, which is a different kettle of fish, really. I
don't really have to worry about that.
No, but, in terms of overall productivity of a plant, it does need to be kind of picked or deadheaded.
Yeah. And the other thing that I would say, and this is definitely a mistake that I made in the early days, is that if you see something on the plant and it's looking good and it looks like it's ready to eat, pick it, even if that means you pick 12 French beans, or, as is more often the case with me, 2 spears of asparagus. I remember when I first started with the asparagus, and I used to think, I must wait until we've got enough for a whole plateful for 2 of us to eat. And of course, if you do that, you lose the spears that you saw on the first day, because by the time you come back, they will have grown into a tree and they'll be completely inedible. So just pick it and use it. And I've got really, really used now to rather all of my vegetable dishes kind of feature a mixture of everything, because I might only have 1 courgette, might only have a really small handful of beans or peas or whatever, but pick them and use them. Don't wait until you've got enough for a dinner party or whatever. Just change the way you cook.
If you were thinking that you might, as I said about popping up after work in summer and what are the kind of main jobs, if you do think maybe it's all becoming a bit stressful and a bit much and you think you can't possibly kind of cultivate the entire space that you've got, is it possible to do a plot share with someone, or could you do something else? Could you set that bit aside and grow something else on it for just a year until you were a bit more sorted?
I would think the most sensible thing to do with it would be to try to find somebody to share it with you. But the number one thing would be, tell the committee or tell the council or whatever that that's what you're trying to do. I mean, in our case, our committee would be very proactive in trying to find someone for you to share with. If you whatever you do, don't just leave it because there are rules on the proportion of the plot that you need to have cultivated within a certain period of time, and obviously if you don't do that, you are going to fall foul of those. But I would say mostly people are very sympathetic to that. The committee or the council or whoever doesn't want you to fail. So if it is a question of needing a little bit more time, but why not get someone else involved? Brilliant. Someone else to do the watering.
I must just ask you before you go, you said that about as well, actually you did kind of answer my question, which was what was the good piece of advice you could give to someone.
Yes.
So my other burning question that I'm going to finish with is, you mentioned your key toolkit that you take with you, and you said a good trowel. What trowel do you use?
Actually, I don't follow my own advice. I know, there we are. I've got a really beautiful trowel at home, which is the Sneerbore heart-shaped one that I bought in the shop at Great Dixter, although it is obviously available in other places. And it's a real pleasure to use because it's a lovely size and it's got a nice point on it. So it makes it very easy to dig with. At the Allotment, I have a really crap trowel, cheap one that I got.
We're not going to mention the brand name of that, are we?
No, it doesn't have a brand name.
Yeah.
From the local DIY shop, I have a pair of incredibly blunt, annoying secateurs that don't even close properly. The one thing I have got is a decent spade, but actually one thing I'm going to do this autumn is upgrade my Allotment toolkit, because it's just, I've got great stuff at home and it all works really well. And then I get up there and I can't do the things that I need to do because, you see, again, I think it's that kind of make, do and mend thing. You sort of think, oh, it's an allotment, I shouldn't be spending money on it. But actually it's nuts trying to work with rubbish tools.
Agreed. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Louise for taking part in the interview. I've just given away a copy of Matthew Appleby's book, The Super Organic Gardener, on my Twitter account, and I'll be bringing you more giveaways, so don't forget to follow me on my social media channels. I'm Roots and All on Twitter and Facebook, and Roots and All Pod on Instagram. Also, please rate and review the podcast in iTunes. In an increasingly competitive space, people are more likely to find the podcast if it has more ratings and reviews, so please do that if you like the podcast and you'd like to help others find it. And don't forget, you can find me on Patreon and GoFundMe by searching Roots and All Podcast, and you can support my work there too. So thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next week when hopefully I'll have stopped coughing.